Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. We're gonna talk about a Cyberpunk ghost story coming to Switch, and Twitter being completely outraged that these characters have, female bits on their chest. We're gonna talk about that. Twitter is not happy that this game has such big bazoombas. Before we get into it, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We're over 165,000 subs. Thank you for the support. Geeky sending this video out. I don't think she really cares about this game at all. But it's a really interesting situation because this shows exactly how game studios, game developers should respond to Twitter outrage. You ignore and mock them. That is what you should do. So this game is coming out on the Switch, which is so weird because we've been talking about censorship in video games, and back in the day it was Nintendo that was very censor happy. They would censor everything. They would not release games in the States that they thought were too risque. But now Nintendo seems to be open to games that are a little more mature as long as they're rated as such, or the mature content is DLC. Sony, not so much. Sony seems like they want to censor everything these days. Also, guys, before we get into it, just a quick note. I am recording from home today because the roads are very, very icy. We're having an ice storm here in Pennsylvania. So if you hear traffic outside, I don't know who the hell would be driving in the ice on New Year's Day, but people do. That's what that is. So let's go to the initial post here on Twitter, and I got to give a hat tip to Black Sage D, who sends a lot of good links. By the way, he's definitely worth a follow on Twitter. Check him out. He's a pretty good guy. We can read about this game on Nintendo Life, and then we'll see the reactions to the game on Twitter, and they're exactly what you would expect. Actually, this game looks pretty awesome, and it seems like Cyberpunk the genre is making a big comeback, maybe because of Cyberpunk 2077, the game, even though that did not go well. That launch did not go well. It's fun on PC. So here we go. The clever folks at East Asia Soft know when it is a good time to jump on the bandwagon, as they're bringing Cyberpunk 2083 to Switch on the 7th of January, which is likely to run a lot more smoothly than that old-fangled 2077. Jokes aside, since a Cyberpunk ghost story is a side-scrolling survival horror game which is set in Neo Hong Kong in the Earth year of 2083. From the official PR for the game, it sounds like a spooky cyberpunk story which might be worth a look. So it's inspired by classic adventure games and the origins of the survival horror genre. Yeah, this looks like an old LucasArts point-and-click adventure to me. Since a cyberpunk ghost story celebrates the slow, cerebral creep of dread instead of relying on over-the-top action or jump scares, with careful attention to pacing, atmosphere, and storytelling, this futuristic tale seamlessly blends 2.5D exploration and problem-solving with suspenseful ghost encounters that act as paranormal glitches in our own reality. Set in Neo Hong Kong, 2083, a young woman named Mei Lin Mack is dragged into a maelstrom of supernatural horror. She peers into the century-old mystery. Mei is forced to question her perception of reality and her trust of her cybernetic eyes. It sounds pretty interesting. The graphics are pretty cool. For an indie game, I like the look. It looks more to me like a beat 'em up game. But, people are having problems with Mei's top. That seems to be what the issue is here. And apparently there's some potential lewd stuff in this game or can be accessed in somehow. And Twitter is not happy. If you go down to some of these replies, you get things like this. Oh, yay, another game where women gave massive breasts for the sake of it. What? Or given massive breasts for the sake of it. How awesome. To which Honey Mutant Candle Squid, Rainbow Squid Inc. says, and another person to complain about them. Here we have FFS Freya. Anyone complaining about the design of the playable characters is sexist. The game isn't a sex game, it's a survival horror game. Curvy women exist. Not all of them wear sacks in shame of their curves. They should be allowed to be playable characters, not just props. This is kind of going back to the origins of the cyberpunk genre a little bit. Look at Ghost in the Shell. Initially, the anime, the manga. The Major was pretty curvy, even though you didn't see any bits because she was, in a synthetic body. You got the point, right? And my feeling on this is if you don't like the game and you don't want to be assaulted with boobs, then don't buy the game. I mean, it really is that simple, right? I mean, it's not like they're putting big tatas on Peach in a Mario game. And even if they were, you don't have to buy that one either. So here we have this person on Twitter. What a misogynist hell. What in the misogynist hell is this? These hypersexualized images are not appropriate and can lead to different forms of sexual violence. Please sort this out. She literally thinks this video game is going to cause violence. Does she write for the New York Times? Remember the New York Times, how Fortnite was going to turn kids into alt-right Yahtzees? This is crazy. Let people enjoy things, Karen. My name is Julie, but do continue with the slurs. Jeff Ninja Fox says, drawings don't cause violence, music doesn't cause violence, movies don't cause violence, video games don't cause violence, art doesn't cause violence. I thought we got past this scapegoating nonsense in the 90s. Thank you, Jeff Ninja Fox. This has been going on forever, since the days of rock and roll. Rock and roll was the devil. And then Dungeons and Dragons was the devil. Heavy metal music was the devil. And now boobs. Boobs are the devil. This is an oversimplification, and my point is about hypersexualization of women, which does have an impact. Can lead to different forms of violence. Citation needed. Maybe the game isn't for you. The art's fine. Not everything has to be catered to your taste and vice versa. It's people like this that are getting, anime and manga banned in Australia, by the way. We are talking about cartoon characters, not real people. The game isn't for your taste. Why is it an issue? There's absolutely nothing hypersexualized about either of these characters. Literally, the only thing you can say is, oh, they have big boobs. Does that mean that me having big boobs naturally is misogynistic and that I'm a sexual object? Tell me where the fictional big titty anime girl touched you. I wish they touched me. Citation needed. And they aren't going to reverse on what they may because a Twitter user said so. No, they're not going to. Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing this up. Mortal Kombat. Yes, when I was younger, I was young at one point in time. When I was younger, it was all about the Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat was going to cause kids to, rip each other's heads off, spinal cords dangling from the severed head because of some over-the-top cartoonish violence. And then we started blaming Doom for everything. And I remember when I was a little kid, the Dungeons and Dragons talk. In fact, I remember going to Bible school when I was in elementary school. And I think I casually mentioned that I was starting to play D&D with my friends during our activity period at school. And I was read the riot act because I was basically summoning Satan in the cafeteria, I guess. So I've been through this before. We've seen this before. And it's always the same kind of people. They just seem to be on different sides of the political spectrum now than they were back then. This is misogynistic, but WAP is empowering. Can someone sort this out for me? Yeah, so they're not going to have it. Top Hat Studios. They're not going to have it. They issued this statement. Official, in all caps, by the way, official statement regarding calls demanding censorship of Sense, a cyberpunk ghost story. Our commitment to our audience and to developers is that we will never infringe on creative freedom or expression. Let's read this, because more game developers and more publishers need to tell Twitter and Twitter Karens to go take a hike. If they don't like a game or a book or an anime or whatever it is, don't buy it. Nobody's forcing you to buy it. Most people are never even going to hear of this game. It's not like this. I don't think you're going to pick this one up at Walmart for the kids accidentally while you're looking for the latest Mario title. Statement regarding censorship demands. With recent news of Sense, a cyberpunk ghost story coming to Nintendo Switch, we're aware of a large amount of messages and demands aimed toward the game's console platform released based on lies. Claims that it is explicitly pornographic or somehow encourages violence, or most ridiculously, somehow breaks the law. Hey, it happens in Australia. We've been talking about this. They made it the law. Furthermore, Voices have attempted to advocate making sale of the game untenable through demanding harsh censorship aimed toward the developer's art style, with threats to review bomb the game and or harass the distributors. They tried that with Comicsgate too, and that worked out really well because they threatened to boycott anyone who associated with Comicsgate. And, there were calls made to certain retailers, etc. The Comicsgate books actually blew up and made a ton of money. People will find a way to get this content. But I digress. You're actually going to help sell more copies of this game. In addition, we have received death threats from those who feel threatened by what is essentially an aesthetic decision of how pixels are arranged on a screen. While disappointed at these behaviors, we're certainly not surprised. Let's be clear on this. We will not censor the game because of self-centered crowds who care solely about grandstanding. We categorically and absolutely refuse to restrict creative expression. Creators should be allowed freedom to express themselves, particularly when it is an expression of the subcultures they have been immersed in. As a cyberpunk game, Sense uses imagery and themes relating to a future of hyper-commercialized, over-commodified imagery as part of its cyberpunk theme and inspiration. Again, going back to the beginnings of the cyberpunk genre, you can see it in this game. You absolutely can see it in the game, because I'm old enough to remember when cyberpunk started, right? This is reflected in all character designs. With that said, we expect that this is lost on those attacking the developer for being harmful and somehow inflicting violence and pain. Those who believe words or images inflict violence should perhaps stop spurting their own hateful, false rhetoric and also cease condoning death threats to those they disagree with. We reject any and all the aforementioned brazen characterizations of the game and would like to reiterate our principles against tampering with creators' expressions. We'd also like to reiterate the game is rated M, 17 plus, PEGI 18. This is not an AO game. Nor have any laws been broken, as some social media commenters have ridiculously claimed out of their biases. The game's rating reflects the target audience, and yet this fact is lost on those who have been led by a will to blindly crusade against their false perceptions. Holy shit, these people are awesome. Once again, Sense, a cyberpunk ghost story, is rated M. The game will release as planned without censorship on the 7th of January 2021 for Nintendo Switch. It can be pre-ordered and preloaded now on the Nintendo eShop. The game has passed QA on other platforms and will be released as well. The game will not be censored. We categorically refuse. Thank you. Top Hat Studios. More studios need to stand up to Twitter. More publishers need to stand up to Twitter. Fuck Twitter. They're not the real world. They're not. And these companies have been kowtowing to a very vocal minority for years to their own detriment. You know, look, there's nothing wrong with releasing a 17 plus game. It's marked as 17 plus. Same with anime and manga. You might not like that content. I don't like that personally. I don't like that kind of content. I don't watch hentai or anything like that. But I can't say that it shouldn't exist because I personally am not interested in watching it. As long as it's marked adult, as long as it's 17 plus and you're not breaking any laws, what's the problem? People should be allowed to watch this kind of stuff if they want to. Again, it's a personal choice. I don't give a shit what they do. They want to watch dirty cartoons. I don't care. But in this case, this is not an adults only game. Now, apparently there is some DLC that's a little risque. As I understand it, not going to show you those pictures. But the game is rated sufficiently. It's rated M. That's like saying we shouldn't have any R-rated movies. We can't do R-rated movies because it might offend some people. And we've had R-rated movies that are frankly a lot more lewd or controversial than this video game with some top-heavy characters who, frankly, 20 years ago, I don't think anyone would have flinched. If I'm being honest, you look at anime and manga art from 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you look at video games, you look at, SNK titles, we've got bouncing boobs and pixels, 20 years ago. Like, we're regressing, we're going backwards. As long as the stuff is marked appropriately, there should be no reason to go on a crusade to get a game banned because of boobs. It's so weird. I mean, I'm looking at Mortal Kombat again as an example, And Mortal Kombat caused all kinds of outrage back in the day, not because of the boobs, because some of the female characters did have relatively skimpy outfits, but because of the violence. Fast forward to current year, people are outraged by Mortal Kombat, not because of the violence, but because of the skimpy outfits. You know, that they actually took the skimpy outfits away from some of the female characters. I'm like, what does it matter if they show too much skin when you're probably going to wind up seeing their insides in a couple of minutes anyway? Yeah, you know, it's like you're concerned about a woman wearing revealing clothing when she's probably going to get split in half via fatality pretty soon. And you're going to see a hell of a lot more than a little extra thigh. You're going to see her internal organs, you know. I don't understand it. I don't understand this puritanical push in video games and everything. It's like we got a bunch of people that don't remember that, like, look, this kind of content has been in games and manga and anime for decades. And now within the last like 3 or 4 years, we got a bunch of new people coming into our hobbies and being like, we got to clean all this up. We can't have Dungeons and Dragons be racist against orcs, fictitious monsters. We can't have characters with boobs on a rated M game. You know, we can't show anything remotely disagreeable in anime or manga that's clearly marked for adults, because adults, they need to be told, you know, what to think and what to buy. Because think of the children who swear like sailors during online gaming matches, right? Those children. So yeah, hats off to Top Hat. They did the right thing. Hopefully 2020, we will see more pushback from these studios, because you're going to lose money. You're going to go out of business. You know, there are publishers in Japan who are scared now because they've been publishing content that is a little risque for years, and Sony's been shutting them down. And we need to, you know, allow these publishers to publish this material. You know, again, I don't have to like it. You don't have to like it. You're not breaking any laws, and there's a market for it. What's the problem? I don't get it. Tell the Karens on Twitter to go suck a peach and get on with it. I'm going to wrap this one up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.